Hoffman Show. What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. I feel like someone, I don't know who it was, Anthony. Some kind of wrecking ball came through this studio. Yesterday was operating from home base, and today I get back in. Nothing's in the right place. I feel like this is a different. I feel like Russell and Linnell are fighting over which chair to sit in here. I don't know when Linnell's in here. He's doing national shows and all kinds of stuff, and then all of a sudden, like every other day, is a different chair. I don't know when that happened, but every day it feels like I sit down in a different chair. The mic was, I guess the mic level, that was on me. I should have double checked. Chris Russell had it at a Chris Russell level, but I'm not as loud as Chris Russell, so I had to fix that. There's a lot of stuff happening, Anthony. A lot of stuff.
Is my camera okay?
Yeah, it's good enough for today. We're back to the side angle.
Okay.
But it's also because I'm over here. So you're looking at here's looking at you, kid. Yeah. By the way, I like the hoodie. I like that.
Thank you, sir.
It's a nice. Is it the Tech Fleece or Fleece Tech?
Yes, sir.
Nice. Yeah. I can't find mine. I have one. It's somewhere. We haven't done enough laundry lately. We've done the laundry. It's clean. We haven't done enough folding and putting away of laundry. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes that be life.
Yeah.
Life be lifing. So here's what we're going to do for most of the first hour today. We are going to ask a question that I do think some others have asked on the station and around the DC sports universe today. But it's on the heels of Alex Ovechkin breaking the Gretzky goal record. And it's on the heels, really, of something that Ted Leonsis said on Grant and Danny yesterday, which is he's the most important DC athlete of all time. I don't know if I agree with important. So we're going to take your calls, and that's going to be our vibe check today. So we'll start taking calls on that coming up in a little bit. But just real quick, last night off the top here, Anthony, the NCAA tournament title game last night, Florida hangs on and wins against, I would say they hang on. I don't know if it's fully accurate because it wasn't like they were ahead for most of it. They hung on at the very, very end when they had a 1-point lead and Houston had 20 seconds to get off a shot. And do you remember, Anthony, the basketball player from Ole Miss, Marshall Henderson?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so his coach was a guy named Andy Kennedy, who I think now works on SEC Network. Very funny guy, very pretty good coach too. But I remember, the NCAA tournament where he kind of became super famous.
Yeah.
Ole Miss started that tournament in Kansas City. I was working in that area at the time and was at those games. I don't think he went like bananas that tournament. Maybe he did on the first game. Anyway, the point is, I remember being in the press conferences with Andy Kennedy. And Andy Kennedy had a saying that stuck with me forever. One, because it was funny, and two, because it was actually pretty poignant. And the saying went, we always like to say a bad shot is better than a turnover. Now, that's the setup. The punchline was there are times where Marshall Henderson takes that a little too seriously because, boy, did he take some bad shots, but that was who he was. For those that are like, who the hell is Marshall Henderson? White guy, chucked it, screamed at fans. I think at one point gave a double bird. Just good times back at Ole Miss and SEC basketball in the early 2010s. That's not the important part. The important part is bad shot better than turnover. Why? Because a bad shot can go in. And that was the problem last night. Is like Houston at the end of that game literally just throw the ball in the general direction of the basket. Maybe you get an offensive rebound, something. But the fact that they get so late in the shot clock and then get caught in the air. And obviously, they were trying to get a shot off with, 3-4 seconds to go probably when dude went up in the air. And unfortunately, he had nowhere to get that ball off, and so he puts it down beside him. No one comes and gets it, and the final couple seconds run off. But that's the thing is, in that spot, especially with as good of an offensive rebounding team as Houston is, you got to get something on the rim. And it's bad execution. And in so many ways, like that game was everything that sucks about college basketball and everything that's great about college basketball all wrapped up into one. It's super intense. The want to, the desire, the heart, the try hard, it's all there. You can see it at the beginning of the game, you can see it at the end of the game. It's there's never an effort problem at the elite levels of college basketball when everything is on the line between great teams. But the execution tends to leave a lot to be desired, and that's kind of how that game ends last night. Is the last 2 minutes, I just watched it back. Like, it is ugly basketball. It's sure it's good defense, but there's just a lack of creativity offensively. There's a lot of passing the ball with no real purpose on the perimeter, and the shot clock is so long that you just get that for 20 seconds and then 10 seconds of desperation ball, and you can chalk it up to good defense for sure. But it's why you wind up with what was a 64-63 national title game. Defense is great, but man, there's a higher level of shot making that exists in basketball that did not exist in that game.
Yeah, I feel like, and that's what a lot of fans were deprived of. We wanted to see points. We wanted to see buckets. But, Duke didn't get the job done. Houston went out there and, upset Duke, and they're the reason, they were in the title game. So I guess we can expect to, have a game of that caliber. Again, they went into that game holding teams to 51 points during the whole season. So
yeah, they're great defensively, and Florida's really good too.
Yeah.
But you have this combination of these aren't the best players in the world.
Yep.
Plus
5 stars on either team.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like, generally speaking, the nature. That's a reflection of college basketball. We were lucky enough to have Cooper Flagg in college basketball this year, but that's the first time since Zion that the best player in the country was like both an elite prospect, and I know Zion hasn't worked out in the pros, but like an elite prospect, and they're in college basketball. How many international guys have we had go number one, and how many real top, like this guy's a multi-time NBA All-Star, type of number one picks that we even had? Like, obviously Wemby, but dude's from France and didn't play a second in college basketball. So again, that's not meant to say that. I'm not saying that with a value judgment. And I realize there are times, like for me, my personal value judgment, bad. Don't like it, don't enjoy it, would rather watch other things. But I also get that leads to really competitive basketball. But I think in those moments, like down the stretch last night, you see the difference in an elite NBA Game 7 playoff game where you're left marveled by the shot making that is required to win those games. And in many ways, the defensive intensity is the same. We just don't appreciate it as much because the shot making is at such a higher level. Where last night, like, you see what happens when you have that defensive intensity. You have two really defensively detailed teams, and you don't have the shot making and creativity to overcome that. And the result is you get a very low scoring, down the stretch, nobody can make a bucket kind of game. And it's not to say it's not fun. It's not to say it's not entertaining. It is to say it's distinctly different. And in many ways, if you don't love those differences, last night is why you don't like college basketball. If you love those differences, last night is why you love college basketball, because the intensity is certainly there and anybody could appreciate that.
Yeah, nah, for sure. I would agree. Even Florida, they had a tough time, getting Walter Clayton going, and everybody going into the game was like, "Oh, what is Walter Clayton going to do against Kelvin Sampson's defense?" And
not a whole lot.
For the most of the game, they held that guy in check, and then the last 8 minutes, he got loose a little bit. But I think it speaks to like the point you were making about not being able to execute offensively, get great shots, and then also just make the shots as well.
For sure. All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about this game perhaps later on in the show, but we're going to spend most of the next hour on a Vibe Check Tuesday talking with you about who is the most important athlete in DC sports history. Ted Leonsis says it's Alex Ovechkin, but important is different than greatest. We'll discuss the nominees and, of course, open the phones to you to see who else is on your list next. 301-230-0980. You can also drop some names in the YouTube chat at the Team 980, and we get going with our discussion of the hour here on a Vibe Check Tuesday after this. Man, this song gives me flashbacks. Gives me flashbacks to high school, Anthony, playing NCAA football, where this was the I can't remember what year, but this was the main song on the soundtrack one year. Obviously, classic De La Soul, far earlier track than when I was in high school. But that's certain songs just put you in time and place, Anthony. That's when that's what that song does to me.
I wish I could say I remember.
No, this was before you were playing video games.
Yeah.
Young man.
Now, I might have been playing video games, just maybe not football.
Let's see. If I was in high school, let's pretend I was 16 years old. Let's pretend it's like my sophomore, my junior year of high school.
So I was in 5th grade.
All right. See, as you get older, age gaps matter less.
They do.
As when you're younger, you realize that what are you now? You're 7 years
28.
younger than me? Yeah. That 7 years when you're 16 is a lot bigger difference because you're just a wee lad at 9.
Yeah.
At 9. It does make discussions like this fun though, because we're at slightly different time periods, although I feel like I'm an outside arbiter for this conversation as someone who, while I have lived in DC for nearly 10 full years, this August will be my my celebration of a decade in DC. But Anthony, you grew up here and have been a DC sports fan your entire life. And this audio from Ted Leonsis struck me yesterday. He was on Grant and Danny in celebration of Alex Ovechkin's scoring of the 895th goal to break Wayne Gretzky's record. And he had this to say about Ovi's place, not just in his own life and in Capitals history, but in DC sports history.
Alex is in a class by himself right now. When you break an all-time record in the league, and we've had MVPs pass through here. Wes Unseld is an all-time great, but for Alex to do what he's done, it can be debated. I'm certainly open for the debate, but I'd have to say he's the most important athlete in a professional sport in Washington, D.C. Certainly when we drafted him 20 years ago, I don't think that would have come into the conversation. And so he's earned it. I mean, his longevity, his body of work, his accomplishments, and what he's done for the community, and what he's done as a person, his charitable work, his outgoing personality and nature. He loves the fans. He loves the community. He loves the kids, right? What he gives back to charity, we're not scripting. He's doing it because it's organic and authentic to him. And every accolade, every statue, everything that he gets, he deserves, he's earned. And, I'm going to be forever grateful to him.
I 100, first of all, understand why Ted feels that way. There's no doubt that Alex Ovechkin is the greatest athlete that has played under Ted Leonsis' stewardship of the teams that he owns. It's not, and especially given the time period, right? There's been no greater capital ever. There's been no wizard greater than he is as a capital. So, Mystics-wise, like Elena just retired. Let's give her flowers as an all-time great. But also some of her greatness comes in Chicago. She wins the title here, but one of her MVPs is a member of the Sky. And I think that's the thing that makes Alex's case so damn convincing of the greatest DC athlete, certainly of the modern era. And I'm going to say modern, post-World War II, post-NFL merger, somewhere around 1960. Let's say, like the television sports era. There are guys that I think have better cases pre that, if you want to really challenge Ovechkin. One would be Walter Johnson, but like when half the population couldn't play baseball based off the color of their skin, you have a hard time convincing me that guy's, like, he was going against the best white dudes back then, and damn was he good. But, like, what happens to his numbers if everybody's allowed to play? It's a valid question, no doubt, in Major League Baseball history. He's one of the greatest of all times, but it is hard to compare anything pre-Jackie Robinson and really, go like 10 years past Jackie when baseball was truly integrated and the truly best players of everywhere. And that, not to mention, I'd say everywhere, but modern times like Shohei Ohtani, just based off geography and technology and the ability to fly across oceans, is not playing in Major League Baseball in 1947, 1957, 1977, or maybe even 1987. So I think it's worth pointing out that like the more global sports have become, the more talent rich these leagues have become, the greater the accomplishments in some ways of the modern player, because they are truly facing the best in the world all around. That said, Walter Johnson could only play who he was playing against, and that guy was one of the greatest pitchers of all time. And in a lot of ways, baseball statistics do stand up to longevity. The other guys that are worth mentioning, the other one I would say, and of course Johnson played, just to kind of clean up here, Senators from 1907 to 1927, all-time leader in regular season shutouts, number 2 all-time in Major League Baseball history in career WAR, only behind Babe Ruth, and led Senators to the 1924 World Series. Anthony, you were the one who looked up all that data. I do not want to take credit for your research. Anything else you'd like to add on Walter Johnson?
He has a school out there in Bethesda, Maryland.
Okay.
Dedicated to him.
Thanks, Anthony, for your contributions beyond the ones that I read. Sammy Baugh is the other early, like pre-1950s player that is worth mentioning in the all-time category. Baugh is still the third leading all-time passer in Washington franchise history, 21,000 yards. He is less than 1,000 yards behind Sonny Jurgensen, not to mention the partnership those two had in the broadcast booth forever. Joe Theismann is the franchise's all-time leading passer with about 25,000 yards. And there is about a 5,000 yard or over a 5,000 yard difference between Baugh in third and Kirk Cousins in fourth. He is also the franchise's all-time leader in touchdowns with 187. Hilariously, he is also the franchise leader in interceptions. He threw 203. And Anthony, that might explain the fact that he had more touchdowns or interceptions than touchdowns. Might explain the fact that it's why they didn't really like the forward pass that much back in the day. But Baugh was a guy who was an innovator in that. He was so far ahead of his time, and frankly, still Sonny was ahead of his time when Sonny was playing in terms of the amount that those teams threw the football. Of course, Baugh also kicked. He also played DB. So Sammy Baugh, truly a legend, Hall of Famer, one of the greatest NFL players ever, but played in an era where the game is totally different than we currently identify it as. And by the way, played on teams that were not integrated. As well, worth mentioning. And so I think it's hard to put either of those two guys over Ovechkin in terms of either greatness or importance.
Oh, I mean, it's
maybe importance. That actually becomes an interesting conversation, though, because like I
think when you think about Sammy Baugh and like his contribution to football, him being the catalyst for the modern day football, what we see now, I think importance-wise, I think he definitely has a legitimate case just because he moved the game in a way Ovi and, Walter Johnson didn't necessarily do.
Yeah, well, I mean, Johnson played in, what was it? They called the dead ball era. Yeah. So, like, totally different, basically a different sport. As much as baseball has ever changed, it was a different sport. So the important thing then to me, though, goes beyond just what is on the field or on the ice or on the court. And this is where I think I'd be very curious to open it up to the phones at 301-230-0980. You might just say, because his greatness is so overwhelming, Ovechkin's the right answer. And I'm not trying to find ways to take stuff away from Ovi. There's one athlete whose face on DC Sports Mount Rushmore is etched in stone and is not coming off, and it's Alex Ovechkin if we're talking about greatness. Everyone else is up for debate. But in terms of importance, I think when you look at the impact of the sport, the impact of the sport on the city, right? He's playing hockey in DC. He's not playing hockey in Detroit, not playing hockey somewhere in Canada. when you look at any kind of cultural relevance, which, in D.C., there have been some athletes that have really touched the culture and touched the city in different ways. Not that Ovi hasn't been a good community member, just it's different. And then I think, this is a football and basketball town. So are there any, well, there's not a defining quarterback. In fact, the kind of legend of the Washington football franchise's success is that they did it with 3 different quarterbacks. Who's the most important athlete in DC sports history? Leonsis says it's Ovechkin, but he's open to the debate. So, Ted, if you're listening, we're going to have the debate for you. This is for Ted Leonsis' entertainment, everybody. Next here on The Hoffman Show. Who is Washington, D.C.'s most important athlete? That is the question at 301-230-0980. Anthony, I'm going to pitch this to you first as we wait for the phone calls to come in. 301-230-0980. Phone lines are wide open right now. Have you settled on an answer for who you think the most important athlete is?
I wouldn't say I necessarily settled in on an answer, but I had asked Rooster his thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you're outsourcing
Rooster,
your opinion to Chris Russell.
He sort of kind of was like, I don't really want to mention Sammy Ball and Walter Johnson because he didn't get to see those guys. And I was just like, in my mind, I was thinking like, it's still history. Like,
Of course.
so I don't think we can, disregard what they brought.
I'm
to
not
the city.
naive enough to think that I've seen everything that's important in life.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff, and I think studying history is good for us. I'll leave that statement there for right now in our current unprecedented times.
Yeah, so I mean, when he was saying that, I was like, I still feel as though like we should be able to consider those guys just because they had some important, contribution to the city. But if I had to lean, I would probably go. I don't know. I'm torn between Ovi and Sammy, just because again about what Sammy brought to the city. Hold on.
All right, Anthony's going to go to answer phone calls now. So here's some of the other people I'm thinking about. Obviously, Wes Unseld is the greatest wizard/bullet of all time. And what he meant to the city, the fact that he brought them a championship, I think he has to be mentioned on the list. But is he as great at his sport / was he as great as Ovechkin is at his? No. And the longevity, and also, I think Wes, who coached and wasn't like a great coach, obviously, for the Bullets / Wizards, because no one has won anything of significance for that franchise since he did as a player. So his coaching stint is limited. So even if you want to add in that, and that is something that's also worth mentioning, right? If we're going to go figures in DC sports history, then you have two other that get to etch their name on Mount Rushmore, and everyone is fighting over the fourth spot. It's Ovechkin, it's John Thompson, it's Joe Gibbs. So we're just limiting this to players. If we're going to then talk about like cultural significance, even though as a player, he was nowhere close to what Ovechkin was. Like, his peak was incredible, specifically the Super Bowl game that he won, and had some decent years around it. But he, from a longevity standpoint, was nowhere close. But cultural relevance, there are few cultural figures in NFL history as relevant as Doug Williams. And so it just depends on, really, to me, how you want to balance. I guess it would be three factors: greatness on the field, importance off of it, and then if this is a DC-based thing, arbitrary ranking that we're having, debate, then did they actually play, like how long did they play in DC? Which also winds up knocking quite a few people off the list. Let's go to Daryl. Daryl, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback on the Doug Williams take because, first of all, DC's a Redskin town first and foremost. Football is always first. Doug Williams, first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. Before he actually won the Super Bowl, there were only a couple of other quarterbacks in the league. You could have had Randall Cunningham, who was sort of, akin to like Deebo Samuels. They call him a receiver, but he's, not a pure quarterback. And then you also had Warren Moon. Warren Moon had great stats, put up great numbers, but they didn't win. Doug Williams broke barriers so that we have Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Jayden Daniels. He's without a doubt the most important athlete, regardless of, he didn't have a long career here, but what he did for the city and for the entire NFL, particularly black athletes in the NFL, I mean, you can't understate that.
Yeah, I would say this, Daryl. Like, forget just the NFL. Like, for America, like for the world, seeing a black man do what Doug Williams did at the time in which he did it, which really was not all that long ago, relatively speaking. Amazon did a phenomenal series on the history of the black quarterback that Michael Vick actually hosted, and if anyone wants to learn, like especially younger folks who don't maybe fully appreciate the levels to which the NFL kept black men from playing quarterback. Like, Warren Moon was one of the greatest college quarterbacks ever. Certainly was one of the best ones of his time. And dude had to go to Canada. And at the same time, Tony Dungy actually was, I think they were Pac-8 and Big Ten players of the year in college. Dungy got flipped from playing quarterback at Minnesota to playing cornerback and just decided to take it. And Warren Moon went to Canada and then eventually came back into the NFL as a quarterback years later. So Doug was a huge part of all that. Daryl, thanks for the call. The only thing I would say is it's kind of like when you have a different guy win MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. And in a lot of ways, we're looking for the Offensive Player of the Year, not the MVP. Doug, cultural significance, off the chart, impossible to overstate how important Doug Williams is to American sports history. If we're talking about the most important athletes specifically to DC sports, unless you want to play a chess game of if there's no Doug Williams and Doug doesn't do what he does, we don't get Jaden, and in 20 years this question is going to be a no-brainer and Jaden's going to be the answer, then it's hard for me to put Doug over Ovi because Doug really just didn't have the longevity as a DC athlete or the sustained greatness as a DC athlete to put him on Ovi's level if this is the context of the conversation. All right, we got a couple more folks that are waiting on hold. We'll get to Ron and Dominic next. Plus, we got some more phone lines open for you at 301-230-0980. It's Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. Who is the most important athlete in DC sports history? That's the question we're trying to answer best we can. It's fun to just talk about some of the nominees and parse it out. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Let's keep it rolling with Ron in Richmond. Ron, thanks for calling and holding through the break. You're on the Hoffman Show. Who's your nominee, and why do you think that they should get this nod?
Darryl Green, and it's not even close. Come on, he did 20 years. 19 out of those 20 years, he had an interception. He guarded some of the greatest athletes in the sport every single game. Obi works on shifts, so he had some rest. Darryl had some rest before when the offense had the ball. But and not only that, that's just on the field. Off the field, look at the difference he's made in the Washington community, and he's still doing it to this day. So how can we possibly think that he wouldn't be the greatest athlete or the greatest person? I guess that's what we're looking at, right?
Well, it's a combination of the both, and Ron,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Tell me, wait a minute, Craig. Tell me what Obi has done off the ice. Just anything close to what Darryl's done. Now Darryl couldn't break a record like Obi broke a record. I mean that's that because it didn't exist. But the 19 interceptions.
Yeah, look, Ron, I think you're trying to fight with me, even though I actually agree with you. Like, this is, to me, Darryl Green's the correct answer. As we sit here in 2025, I think Darryl Green is probably the correct answer. 20 years, legitimately one of the best at his position in the history of the sport, and an unimpeachable record of off-field, whether you want to call it success, contributions, etc. Ovi has done quite a bit in the community. He's done great stuff with kids. He's got a foundation. Like, when you're rich and you're an athlete and you have the profile that Ovi does, you probably at least do a toy drive, if not a lot more. Darryl Green has invested a ton in a lot of communities and means a lot to a lot of people. And the class and character by the way that he has done it over the years is A+ all around. Ron, I know that that probably I should have mentioned him earlier, and that's my bad for throwing out some other names, and I was kind of waiting for someone to call in. So, Ron, congrats. You won the game because you got to make the case for Darryl Green, and I think that's the correct answer.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that you would listen. But, the other thing, too, is Obi's had a great assist to the record that he broke. The good players around him is able to pass in the puck, where Darryl was out there on his own.
I mean, I think trying to take away down from Ovechkin's record, or anything that Ovi's done in the name of this conversation with Darryl Green, that's silly. Like, you can put another dude out there where Ovi was in his office and they ain't scoring 895 goals. Like, scoring goals is the whole point of hockey, and Ovi scored more of them than anybody else in the history of the sport. Like, it's stupid what the dude has done on the ice. On the ice, like, it's not even close. I think the reason Darryl Green is the correct answer is because in this town, the football team means way more to way more people than the hockey team. Although, I will say this. After the Super Bowl drought, which Darryl Green was a part of, winning the Super Bowls, 2 of them of the 3, and he also was obviously a part of the team at the start of the drought, but that's not his fault. The team that broke it was that 2018 Capitals team. And if I were to ask a lot of people alive today what their favorite DC sports memory is, it might be the Capitals winning the Cup and or that parade. It's certainly mine. Now, again, I moved here in 2015, so that's being very specific with a window. And anybody who is younger, or anybody who's like 35 and younger, you don't remember the Super Bowls. So there aren't a lot of options. It's that or the Nationals, or if you're a Mystics fan, they have one. The Spirit, they have one in terms of titles. But only one team gets to knock out the drought. And Ovechkin was the guy that did it. And that parade, I mean, we got the Real Things imager that we play at the end of the show every day. And we still use the "we're not going to suck this year" on that. It's one of the most iconic parade speeches ever, even though it was like drunken hilarity. So to say what Ovechkin's given to the town, off the ice, he's certainly done stuff. On the ice, he's given more joy than basically any athlete in the last 30 years. And I think that's the other part where if I'm going to argue Ovi over Darrell Green, it would be Darrell Green plays a position that doesn't lend itself to those kinds of things. The joy of Ovechkin scoring a goal, if you like both teams equally, is going to be probably more than things you get from Darrell Green most weeks. Now, if he picks one off and takes it to the house, okay, but I think it's the total package that Green probably surpasses for me. Let's take some other calls on this. Dominic held through the break as well. Dominic, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, Hoffman. Thanks for taking my call. So I'm going to give you my quick bias answer. I'll give you my real answer. So
okay.
I'm a soccer guy. So, unless you're a soccer guy, you'll understand. But for me, in the soccer world, big DC United fan. So the best player, to my opinion, for DC United in this community would be Javi Moreno. One of the best, players to ever lace up the cleats for the DC area, and a big time ambassador for the game of soccer, and still to this day, big in the community and teaching the young kids the game of soccer. So that's my biased answer.
Yeah, so I appreciate the shout. Here's my problem always when we bring up DC United in this discussion, and that is that MLS is ultimately like the 9th best league in the world or something like that. Like, it's just, if he's truly Alex Ovechkin might be one of the 5 greatest hockey players to ever walk the planet. Moreno wasn't playing in the English Premier League or the Bundesliga or whatever, and so I just have a hard time including. Sure. While I think it's worth the shout, and for what he means to DC United fans, and boy, I am so sorry, Dominic, that you're a DC United fan right now, because things are rough. I appreciate the shout on a local level. I just kind of exclude, not because I'm anti-soccer, I'm very much not. I just have a hard time counting them amongst the major leagues because the best players on earth are not playing in MLS, certainly when they're at the peak of their powers, unless it's a Beckham or Rooney or whoever that's coming over after. Who's your real answer, though?
I totally agree with you. All right, so I'm going to go with the last caller, and to me, it's also Darrell Green. I mean, look what he's done in his career. 20 years, cornerback, Hall of Famer, Super Bowls. The way he single-handedly has the greatest punt return in Redskins history, leaping over in Chicago. Stopped Minnesota from in a conference championship game to make them advance to the Super Bowl. And, the greatest run to chase down Eric Dickerson, I think, was the only one to really do that.
Yeah.
So on the field, those are just a couple of the highlights for him, and he revolutionized the cornerback position for his time, and being undersized too. Is also a greatest achievement. I understand Sammy Baugh, the multiple positions and this and that, but you got to give to Darrell for his what he's done on and off the field, and even to this day at his age, I think he could still run a 40. Just as fast as a lot of people in their late 20s and 30s, maybe.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I would not want to race Darrell Green in a 40, and I think he's 65 years old. So he was an incredible special athlete that is also an incredible special person, and it's fun when we have conversations like this to be able to shout him out. Dominic, thanks for the call. All right, real quick, I'm going to take 2 more calls. We're running tight against the break, so we got to go quick here. So Mitch, you're up first. Who is your answer to this question? Most important athlete in DC sports history?
Well, thanks for taking my call, Craig.
You got it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Mitch. Fire away. You got like 30, 45 seconds just because we're tight on time here.
I don't know how Walter Johnson is not in the conversation. Pitched 22 years, won over 400 games, and I think he had 136 shutouts. I mean, 22 years for one team, that's pretty good, I think.
It is. The only arguments that I have against Walter Johnson are he played so early in the sport's history and at a time in the country where, he didn't play against any black players. And so you have a ton, or never to mention, Asian players or, players coming from the Caribbean. So, the talent pool that he was doing that against was diluted, and it was just a smaller league back then, and he pitched in the dead ball era. So the pitching stats from that era haven't been surpassed, not because those guys were so much better than the pitchers of today, but because the game is fundamentally different. But That said, of that era, he was so thoroughly dominant. I think he's definitely in the conversation. I just have a hard time putting him over some of the others. But Mitch, thanks for the call, and it's worth a shout out on that for sure. And then Nick, you have one of the most interesting ones. Your pick is controversial for another reason. Nick, who you got on this?
So I actually went with Cal Ripken Jr., looking at it from the perspective of before the Nats were in town.
Yes.
Looking at it as him breaking a record that was considered unbreakable, setting the benchmark for shortstops, and really competing offensively in the steroid era when there's really no evidence that he was ever involved in that, though nobody could ever know for sure. But also what he did for the community in Baltimore and surrounding while he was active with the Orioles and then afterwards.
I think it's a great shout. I think it's so funny to me to see the distinctive age gap of folks who are like, the Orioles are not a DC team. And then a certain, what is it? Probably about like if you're 45 or older, maybe is at this point is the age gap where you're like, no, I'm from DC and the Orioles were my favorite team and Cal Ripken was my favorite athlete. So Nick, I think ultimately I just come down at this point, we probably have enough DC athletes that we don't put a Baltimore guy on, but it is worth the shout because during Cal's career, he was the best baseball player in this area by a lot, and because of what he did with Lou Gehrig's record, et cetera, it's a great shout. So, Nick, appreciate the call. Thanks. All right, there goes Nick. All right, those are great. And that we got some names I didn't expect. And also, I think I come down on Green being the right answer. 20 years, everything on and off the field, a bona fide Hall of Famer, 7-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, multiple-time All-Pro, multiple-time Super Bowl champion on the most important and most famous teams that this town has ever produced. He's a cornerback, which comes with its own limitations in terms of fame and impact and all those kinds of things. But I think if you take the total package, I'd probably land on Darryl Green. But I'm very curious to see, if you guys have any other thoughts on this. You can leave them in the comments on YouTube. You can obviously send me a Blue Sky post or whatever other social media avenues that you have to get to me. Up next here on the Hoffman Show, Take Command. Take a look at a couple of mailbag questions today. We can do it. And Anthony, I'm gonna put you in charge of deciding which part of the show we want to take. We can go Julio Jones story time and some receiver talk, and then or some other options because Logan played with Julio and Julio retired last week. And then I forgot what the other questions were. Oh, we had some draft stuff. Yeah, that's the two. We can go Julio and receiver talk. Or we can go pure draft stuff. So one of those two things, that'll be Anthony's decision coming up next. It's a Wizards game day, so an hour from now, we'll talk to Dave Johnson here on the Team 980. Can the Wizards have let's just say, a better defensive performance than the last time they played the Pacers? That was the 162-point game. Yikes. We'll talk to Dave about that. There's also a ton of NBA news today, mainly that the Nuggets have fired Mike Malone. What the hell is going on with these coaching firings this late in the season? We will talk about it a little bit later on, in the program. Take Command, podcast I do, of course, with Logan Paulson, and we play some of it for you here on the radio. Today, we did a mailbag. We started off by talking about story time with Logan because he played with Julio Jones, who retired last week, and we went from that into talking about why route running is so difficult in the NFL, or at an NFL level. Really, really great conversation that I encourage you to listen to on the podcast because we're going to play a different part of the show for you from our mailbag segment on the NFL draft. A couple of questions, couple of names that I wanted to run by Logan, or that you out there in question land wanted to run by Logan, and then a couple of other topics as well. Last thing I'll say real quick on the housekeeping front for Take Command. Next week, Anthony, I don't know if I told you this, Logan's going on vacation. So I'm left to my own devices.
He's going on vacation when?
Next week. He actually
Nice.
leaves Thursday. Him and the fam are going on a spring break trip overseas.
Love that for
Which
them.
I absolutely love for them. Logan deserves vacation. Him doing it the week before the draft. Look, I'm not. It's when spring break is. So I'm not even gonna say like, hey, it's not when I would pick it. Like if it was 100% based off of Logan's schedule, that's not when he would pick it. But that's when spring break is. So that's when he's going on vacation. But I felt a responsibility to make sure that no letdown in the podcast. We can't possibly have a letdown in the podcast. And so I've recruited John Keim to do a mailbag for me next Monday.
Nice.
Yeah. So we got that. And then we got a special guest that I will announce on Take Command on Thursday, and reiterate here on the show on Thursday for next Thursday and our draft show. But Logan and I will do some more draft stuff, including a visit with the Athletics' Dane Brugler on Thursday. But as for right now, here is me and Logan talking about your draft questions on today's edition of Take Command. Take Command Podcast, Mailbag Edition. Logan Paulson there, Craig Hoffman here, and Tyler writes in, says, I love the podcast. I wanted to ask your opinion on two draftable players the Commanders could take. The first is wide receiver Trey Harris, who's a big receiver with downfield ability who dominated for Ole Miss when healthy. The other is Ahmed Hassanain, the defensive end from Boise State, 6'2", 272 with good pass rush ability. He came to the U.S. from Egypt, so he was late to playing football. I think he could be a good day 3 addition to the defense. Looking forward to hearing your opinion. Thanks. We're just talking receivers, Logan. So let's start with Trey Harris. And then I'm very intrigued to hear your thoughts on Hassanain, especially considering we know, for instance, last year with Brandon Coleman, a guy that was late to football. We know that Adam Peters sometimes looks at that ceiling upside of a guy who has plenty of more room to grow because he's not quite as experienced. But what's the book on Trey Harris first as we look at some potential receiver options for the Commanders?
Yeah, Trey Harris is probably the more interesting of the two for me personally, again, because he's a big body guy. He's like 6'3", he's like 210, 215, and he plays in this Ole Miss offense, helmed by, who's the offensive coordinator there?
Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin, that's right. And he, and there's just a lot of space. He runs a lot of hitches, runs a lot of posts. Think about like your DK Metcalf route tree from when he was coming out where it's like, I'm going to run a go, I'm going to run a post, I'm going to run a hitch. And so there is a lot of like, I'm bigger and more physical than you, and I'm going to win this ball down the field. And I do have some
Take Command Podcast.
For me personally, again, because he's a big body guy. He's like 6'3", he's like 210, 215, and he plays in this Ole Miss offense, helmed by, who's the offensive coordinator there?
Lane Kiffin.
Lane Kiffin, that's right. And he, and there's just a lot of space. He runs a lot of hitches, runs a lot of posts. Think about like your DK Metcalf route tree from when he was coming out where it's like, I'm going to run a go, I'm going to run a post, I'm going to run a hitch. And so there is like, I'm bigger and more physical than you, I'll win this ball down the field. And I do have some horsepower to run and kind of get open things down like that. I come back to, I love big receivers. I absolutely love them. But like, just because we just talked about Julio, we just talked about route running, there is a little bit of nuance that you need to see from that position. And if you can't start and stop, can't get out of your cuts, like you can't just out big everybody all the time, and I think that's where with him, where I'm a little bit on the fence, because again, like it's fault. It's just the offense they were in. Like, I want every one of his targets and so you do occasionally see him run a really nice dig, which to me is like one of those routes that kind of shows a little bit of nuance. You got to decelerate, got to work a stem, and it looks good, right? And he can catch the football well. He's not a super natural catcher of the football. Like there's just like there's like Tetra McMillan's a good example. There's just like Velcro in their hands, like they can just catch it. I'm not saying Trey Harris is bad at that. Just saying he's not like a superpower. So the thing that gets me is like, do you have enough physicality to make that play at the next level? Like, so another example is like Tyler Warren from Penn State. Like his college film is tremendous, but he outbigs people. Like he's just bigger, longer than a lot of people. In the NFL, everyone's big and strong. Does that still play? And that's kind of the same question I have Trey Harris, right? Is can you be bigger and stronger at the NFL level when you're big and strong in college, but it's not like dominantly big and so that's where it's like, is he an impressive athlete? Yeah. Be interesting at like 61, probably for the Commanders. But I do have questions about him. And again, like if I'm picking you in the range, questions about everyone's game, like Jaden Higgins, right? Can you play outside receiver? You played mostly slot in college, right? You have Jalen Noel from Iowa State. Like, can you be consistent? Can you play bigger than your frame? Like there's all these questions with everybody, but those are my questions with Trey Harris. I would be interested if the Commanders made that selection at 61 because he's big and he's fat. It's just, is that nuance, is that kind of physicality there for him? And the question is, I don't know, but interesting at 61 probably.
Yeah, he's big and he's fast, but he's not huge or he ran 4.54 at the combine. He's listed 6'2", 205 on NFL.com's profile. He's 6'3" TFF. So I'm guessing PFF's number is what else gave him, and the NFL's number is what he actually measured in at. So that feels significant. So it's not like, and look, I feel like anytime I talk about DK, people are like, but you hate DK. I just didn't want him here for the point is, like, he's not DK. Right? DK is 6'4", even if he doesn't play like it, and he is 220. And 4.3 fast. That is not who Trey Harris is. So, if you're trying to big body people, but you're also don't have the speed or your body's not that much bigger than who guys are like 6'1", 215, then that does become, I think, a real question. All right, Ahmed Hassanain, Boise State. I got no file on him. I learned about him when this question came up. So this. I am intrigued by the story. That's for this. This is a guy that I wish we were actually talking about him next week, because then the beats be out. Because Dane will have some incredible story in it. So maybe we'll ask Dane about him. Maybe not. But what's your read on him?
Yeah. So I really enjoy watching him. He's fun to watch. He kind of plays like a 4-eye 5 technique, so like kind of right over the nose of the tackle, and he plays hard. You can tell he loves football. You can just tell he absolutely loves the game. He plays hard. He's finishing the ball almost every play. Like, he just is passionate about it. The problem with him is he's 6'1", he's 267, so a little undersized to kind of play interior defensive line at the NFL level, right? Which is kind of what that 4-eye position is. Like, when you think about a traditional 4-eye, you're talking like 6'4", 6'5", like 290 to 310, and like he doesn't really fit in that mold. So to me, he's got to kick out, right? So he'd have to kick to like a true 5 technique, 6 technique. Trying to think of a good example. In our defense, it's kind of like Cleveland Farrell, like that type of guy, right? The problem is, like, he's not a plus athlete. He's kind of an athlete that fits more the mold of a traditional 4-eye. Like, he ran a 4.87 at the combine, and his jumps were just okay. When you watch his field work, his bend is fine. Like, he's a football player, the passion, the motivation, the physicality, it's there. And so when you say, oh, like, what's his role here if he were to come to Washington? Be a rotational guy that is kind of like Karlaftis in Kansas City, and Karlaftis is a better athlete, but a guy that can generate a ton of pressure on his own, but is going to kind of get cleanup sacks, and you need kind of to be, you need to complement somebody who's an elite pass rusher. You know, Karlaftis complements Chris Jones, right? Like that's kind of what it would need to be here. And to me, he's not a guy that's going to kind of generate on his own because he lacks the athletic upside. But in terms of the film, like I really like the film. And if they signed him like in the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round to come here, like I would be excited because it's like he loves playing football. He's physical. And he'd have to kind of be a guy that, you know, is bottom half of the roster, practice squad guy that has special teams value. And because of it's obvious, like when they did a feature on it, like, you know, like when I'm watching the drills, he's getting ready to do a drill and he's just like so juiced up. He's screaming at the D-line coach. Like he's just excited. Like, oh, you know, like, and I love that. I love that person. And so I'm going to person to make an NFL roster. I think the problem with other guys that are, you could get late that have more athletic upside. And I think that's where you kind of run into a weird thing with Hussein, you know?
Yeah. So it goes back to with Jeremy on kind of the peeling back the layers of the onion, and every is like a down round grade. Yeah. It's like, okay, for him, the idea of someone who hasn't been playing football that long often is they're a great athlete. And it's like, God, if we could mold this guy, football player. And for him, then having that athletic upside is definitely going to peel away molders almost at once. And so I think that's the hard sell for him. But if he's got the passion and you said the thick and all that stuff shows up, he's going to light up views and guys are just going to be like, I want in the room. That's definitely maybe a higher floor guy to bet on in theory. Though, like at the very least, he's going to go out there and bust his butt on special teams and play really hard for the 7 snaps a game on defense you need him. There are worse guys to have than a guy who has that kind of passion. And also, what does he do to the rest of the room of, the star player never slack off because there's that guy fighting for his life, just trying every snap and asking good questions in meetings and all that kind of stuff.
And I was talking to Fred about this too. And it's like, what you're trying to find is people that love football. Yeah. When I watch him play, when I see his kind of, dude loves ball. So like, I want that guy. So like, does he move up my list? Yeah. But is he still in that range of like,
we're talking a 5th, 6th, 7th rounder for sure.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
For sure. In terms of first, next question comes from Timoth78. Hello, Timoth. Who are sprint to the podium prospects for you at 29? We've done we've almost answered this like haphazardly, shotgun style. Sure. We've done different mock drafts. And it's like, oh, it's on the board if that guy's on the board. So let's consolidate our answers in one place here. Guys that theoretically could be available at 29 drop for one reason or another that you're like, oh hell yeah, let's go. Thinking about it, we're not going to waste time. We're past me, and it's time to make a pick. Let's get this done.
Yeah. So I mean, if we want to, obviously Mike Green. I don't think the more I watch him, the likely I think this is, unless the off-field stuff is just dramatic. You know what I mean? Like
that seems to be the only question. Like that is the more you watch him or everyone watch him, that's the narrative. Him is like if he drops, it's going to be because 25 teams have him off the board for off stuff, not because of anything that's on tape or in the athletic testing.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I don't think that happens, honestly. The next one would be Raku, from Boston College. Like he can rush the passer. Like he can just rush the passer at a really high level. He's kind of, to me, he's got like the perfect build for it. He's like 6'2", he's like 250. He's got 34-inch arms, and his bag is so deep. He's a bit undersized versus the run, which again might throw some teams off. But I think he really comps well. And Jeremy said this, and I've heard other people say this too, to Nick Benito, a guy that's a little undersized, but just has the juice. And like I had a coach time, is if there's any sign of juice, like with a pass rusher, you got to jump on it. And he's got it, and he just is this. Think about what the Commanders need, and him at 29. I don't know. The more I watch him as a pass rusher, like I think I got thrown off early on because he's just okay against the run, but like as a pass rusher, he just brings this tremendous card to the table and tremendous nuance to the position. The other guy at edge would be like Nick Scorton. I'm a big Landon Jackson guy. The more I watch him, and again, I would if Landon Jackson was a Commander. He feels more like a high to mid-second round pick. Nick Scorton's a guy that I think actually could be there at 29. Like, he just plays so hard. He's physically
Is he
violent.
in the sprint to the podium
I think
category
so.
though?
Because of how he plays. You know what I mean? Like, he just plays hard. You watch his 2023 tape, he's 11 sacks, and they're good sacks. Like, he's got a deep bag. And so, like, I think you couple the physicality, the mindset, kind of the every down intensity he brings with rush upside. I feel pretty good about that. So those are like the three names in mind, and as edge rushers. And then everyone asked me about James Pierce Jr. Like, James Pierce Jr., if he was a Commander, I'd be really excited because I trust the staff. But when I watch the film, like, I don't think he has top shelf bend. He's got top shelf get off, and he's got top shelf physicality, but you need someone that's going to, like, make him the best version of himself. And I trust the Commanders to do that. But I would take those three guys right above him. And that's not, I guess that sounds like I'm being, like, mean to James.
That's the reality of it.
I just prefer those three guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
and the other thing, he's got off-field stuff too, so you'd have to trust the staff on that part of it as well. Is there anybody in the pass catcher category, and I'm specifically phrasing this as pass catcher because I know your guys is Colston Loveland, that if somehow he gets past the Chargers and reunion with Harbaugh at 22 and he falls all the way down, that he'd podium guy for you? But who else?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, he for sure is. Like, if he was there, like, I it would be hard pressed. Like, Mike Greener there, like, it's like Sophie's choice. You know what I mean? And, like, because I think Colston Loveland, he could be special, like, this year. Kind of like, I went back and watched Brock Bowers just to kind of refresh. Like, and from a route running standpoint, I think everyone just taking some talking here. I think he's a better route runner than Brock Bowers, but Brock Bowers was a more special prospect because of what he did with the ball. It's like, I've never seen a tight end catch the football the way he did and then just break tackles and make people silly. So, just to give you some context there, like, I think he's in that kind of group. Obviously,
really special route runner, catcher of the football, gets open,
body control. Like, he's tough. Like, I was watching a game last night where he pops his shoulder to socket and then comes back in and tries to play the rest of the game. Like, I just love that type of stuff. Like, you love ball, I love ball. So yeah, Colston Loveland, obviously, like, this is like total pipe dream, but like Ashton Genty, he's available for, like, it's not going to happen, but that would be an interesting one. I love McMillan a lot. He's not going to fall to 29, but we're talking just, perfect world, perfect scenario. And same thing with the defensive line. If Shamar Stewart by some
Jalen Walker, like we talked about with Jeremy,
those guys are. I don't think they're going to be there, but if they are, you run them in because that could be difference makers. But the other one that's interesting to me, and the more I kind of like, I'm like, oh man, this guy could be a really good pro, is Emeka Mbuka from Ohio State. Yeah. And I think there's a real chance he's there. And am I running it in? But he kind of falls in that Nick Scorton category where the more I watch him, the more I like him as a runner, the more I like him as a blocker, the more as a professional NFL wide receiver.
He just does everything well.
Correct.
You're waiting for, he's one of the guys that I've spent a little time with. At first, I'm just like, this is fine. I realize that, like, it's every snap. Quality of, no matter what you route run, doesn't matter the route, doesn't matter, like, the football reliably, he blocks, there's nothing that pops. There's no, like, I'm sure when you went back and watched Terry at Ohio State, I remember some of the highlights of watching him after they drafted him being like, let's see what this kid's all about. Right. And you're like, oh, this kid just ran 80 yards away from everybody. That's pretty neat. Igbuka's not going to do that, but, like, he'll have 8 catches for 78 yards. And 6 of them will be for first downs, and he'll have a key block on somebody else, and this and that. And so, yeah, I think he's a weird prospect, but I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, tremendously high floor, and I think that's awesome. Matthew Golden, I like a lot. Like, he reminds me a little bit like AB. Change of direction, route running, like, he can kind of do everything. And again, I think he probably goes higher. Like we hear about, like, Steve Smith, for example, did his receiver rankings recently and had him ahead of Tetra McMillan, and
that's happening more and more too. There's other people that.
The thing about Matthew Golden is I don't feel the speed from him.
Yeah.
Like,
also that stat Jeremy gave us, Jesus out of it.
Yeah. So again, like, he's interesting, but I'm becoming more of a Emeka Mbuka guy to watch him. So to answer your question, and then always in this bucket of, like, offensive
sprint Yeah.
is Amari Hampton. Like, again, he's not Ashton Genty. I'm not a big take your running back in the first round, but the more I watch, he's not there. He's not the Colston Loveland and Mekembuka. He's not in that story for me yet. But the more I watch him, the more I'm like, difference maker in an offense. So some names offensively that I think are interesting. Obviously, I still am really high on Josh Simmons. Like, like I heard that the injury's okay. I heard his interviews were just okay. Like, but the tape, if we're just talking about the tape, for me, it's really good tape. And he could be like a franchise left tackle. So I know we have him if he were to play right and then Coleman play like.
Justin Wirfs it and have Tunsil play left tackle for 3 years. Josh Simmons becomes an all-pro tackle and then flips over to the left and does that. Like, that's, I mean, Wirfs, chances you're going to redo that, very slim, because Wirfs is the first guy to ever be an all-pro on both sides of the line at tackle. But like the idea of going right to left tackle and being good at both is not unheard of. Anyway, just real quick, any of these podium, or is it kind of like, hey, if everybody else goes, we're going to get the Will Johnson, non-Travis Hunter, next best DB on the board, like, we'll take him. But there's any corner or safety that you sprint.
It's actually the two safeties for me, Malachi and Nick Corey. Like, and I don't think either one of them is going to be there. Like, but Malachi Starks is Jahadae Barron's probably like in contention for this title. Is like best football player, just football player. Like when I watch Malachi Starks, like, tackles well, he takes good angles, he can play man coverage. Like, this is, I heard he's the safest pick in the draft, and the more there's like, his floor is just sky high. He's gonna be a good pro. And then if you're trying to swing Nick Amos, like, I don't love his tackling all the time, but like, I'll be damned just magical every once in a while, and you're just like, those two guys for me. And then obviously Jahadae Barron, but he's a top 15 pick. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, 3 deep. And
Amenwari and Starks might be, but they also might be available for Washington at the end of the first round. So that's kind of the crux of the question. The physical tools are outrageous. One of the craziest raw athletes. But also, I've heard Dane talk about his mates just raving about his mental side, and the plays he makes and his understanding of coverage and all that kind of stuff. So that's something that I think is worth tagging for a guy that's kind of put out there as a physical freak. Like, his mental game's pretty strong.
I don't know if that answers the question, but I know we talked about a lot of guys, but it feels like we kind of touched on them. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think
there's some guys we're excited about.
Question: one of those guys, please be available 20. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube, too, at the Team 980. Coming up at 6 o'clock, Dave Johnson from Indianapolis, where tonight the Wizards will take on the Pacers at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, an arena, Anthony, that I've been to a stunningly large amount of times. I think I've been there.
CC?
Gainbridge. I think I've been there 4 times. 2 Pacers games, and then two
Aces.
2 Aces Fever games last year. Just a
Oh,
lot of,
you went to both last year.
yeah, because they played twice in 3 days. That's the whole reason
Oh,
we
yeah,
went.
yeah. In September, right?
Yeah.
I remember this.
Yeah, I did the show from the hotel that I stay at during the combine every year.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was a good time. But anywho, that's where Dave is. We'll talk to him at 6 o'clock. Right now, though, the news of the day of the NBA. Anthony, how did you find out Mike Malone got fired?
I got a big fancy notification, and somehow, some way, I sent it to you twice, and I didn't realize that.
Well, I thought it was funny because you sent me the tweet from Shams, and then I responded with, "What?" And then you sent it again, which I thought was a funny joke, but apparently was an accident.
Yeah, it was an accident.
Oh, I just thought you sent it again to be a smartass because I was like, that's a funny bit. I'm like, I already saw this text, and then I like went back in our text later to look at it, and I was like, oh, he sent it. I said what, and he sent it again, and that was a funny bit. But apparently you actually weren't that funny. You got funny by accident.
It wasn't. I wasn't that funny, but yeah,
which is actually really quite on brand for how this relationship tends to go. Yeah, I found out from you telling me, and then one of my other group texts went nuts with all the stuff with the GM and everything. And it's just the NBA is such an interesting league when it comes to coaches because there's no doubt that Mike Malone is a great coach, phenomenal basketball coach. In the same way that there's no doubt that Frank Vogel, who was fired 2 years after he won a title with the Lakers, a great coach. It's why he got hired again somewhere else in Phoenix, and like pretty immediately. Mike Budenholzer's been fired multiple times and then gone and won 60 games at his new stop. Like these guys keep getting recycled, and they keep winning in their new places. And Malone was a guy who gave the Sacramento Kings the best seasons they had in like 20 years. And then, for whatever reason, he got fired there, and the Nuggets were like, sweet, we'll pick him up. I actually think they swapped coaches. I'm trying to remember who the Nuggets coach was that got fired and wound up in Sacramento. I might be making that up. But the point is, Malone was good in Sacramento. Everyone was stunned that he got fired. Then he goes to Denver, and he is really successful. They ultimately win the championship in 2023, and then he gets fired. And I think if I try to, my first thought is like, did something happen? Was there an incident of some kind? And it does not appear that in the couple of hours since this news broke that there has been anything untoward that has come out where it's like, oh, well, that's why they fired him with a week to go in the season. And obviously this comes, 2 weeks after? Not even. Taylor Jenkins gets fired in Memphis. And I think there's 2 different things that I would say are relevant factors in these type of firings. One, it's an 82-game season. These seasons are really long. And I do think there is probably some merit to the fact, and this seemed to be the case, especially in Memphis, that eventually you just need a new voice. That if you are hearing the same as an athlete, especially, and especially in teams like Denver and Memphis that have a pretty high level of continuity on their roster, that if you just heard the same thing over and over again, it's real hard to keep as motivated and to have fresh ideas. And if you get in any kind of a rut, it's hard to get yourself out because your creativity dies a little bit as a coach and as a player, and those relationships at times need a fresh voice. To do it a week before the playoffs starts feels absolutely crazy. Or 2 weeks in Memphis's case, but they had like an heir apparent. They did a bunch of staff changeover last year. That's in some ways a different situation. Malone, this feels like it comes out of absolute nowhere. But then the other part of this that I think is interesting, especially with Denver, like Jokic seems like the most easy to get along with guy in the whole league. He's like, whatever, I show up, I play basketball, I'm brilliant, then I go home to my horses. But in a lot of these places, the players have the most power. And they would much rather change out a coach than players. And that's what I think makes Miami and San Antonio specifically so incredibly unique, is because Pat Riley is the god in Miami, and he says the most important person in this organization is not any individual player, it's Eric Spoelstra. And everybody, including when he was there, LeBron James, is going to have to get on board. It changes the power dynamic to a more traditional coach has the power over the players model, versus in other places where if a player is upset or an owner senses that he could be losing goodwill with the players, especially if it's someone like a Jokic or a Jamal Murray, then that coach tends to go. And there's a famous story from LeBron's time with the Heat where basically LeBron was unhappy with Spo, walked into Riley's office thinking he was going to get something. Or I know he walks into Spo's office and Spo writes Riley's number on the board and goes, call him. And that was the end of that. Because Riley was like, Spo's the coach. He's in charge. Get in line or we're going to have problems. And that was LeBron James in like 2010. I just don't feel like with Jokic that he would ever do something like that he would ever tune a coach out. That's just not how it seems to be how he's wired from everything we know about him. Maybe there's some stuff under the surface, but it's just, that to me is why this is so surprising, is you have a proven track record of success. They've been great in the playoffs multiple years. And on the verge of the playoffs, yes, the Nuggets have had a little bit of slide of late, and they have a huge week here where they could finish third in the West or they could finish eighth in the West. But it's at some point, like, what's a new coach doing now? Just wait and see if you can, have this guy that's led you to a championship pull you out of this rut. And if it doesn't go the way you want, then you move on after the season.
Yeah, that's the big thing for me, the timing of the situation. They have 5 games left in the regular season. And again, to your point, Mike Malone has championship pedigree. So he knows what it takes to, get there while in the playoffs. So I think losing that experience, that continuity, with the coach and the players, it's tough. And to be honest, them moving off Mike Malone's, granted they haven't had the success they've wanted, since the All-Star break. I think they're 11-13 since the All-Star break.
Yeah.
But at the same token, Jamal Murray's been in and out of the lineup because
missed 5 straight games with a hamstring injury.
Yeah. So I feel like, granted the GM, he did let some of the veteran players, the guys that were important for their championship run, he did let some of those guys go, the Bruce Browns of the world. And, when you draft guys like Christian Brown and Strother, you want those guys to step up and develop, and I think they just haven't had the success they haven't seen that growth out of the young group of players that they've had. But I don't think that's more so on the coach. I mean, the GM has a huge role in that.
100%. Like the biggest decisions that have been made about this franchise have been made by Calvin Booth, who they're not going to extend either. And they've happened in this 3-year stretch since Tim Connolly left the organization for Minnesota. And that's the thing is, if the executive's the problem, why are you firing the coach? Yes, there's been frustration, and yes, there's been emotions boiling over, but that's the NBA. It's not always going to be simple. And I guess, at the end of the day, can you find other good coaches? Maybe the dude Adelman who's taken over, who I think is Rick Adelman's son, who's their lead assistant, has been a long-time assistant in the NBA. Obviously, he's grown up around it. Maybe he's the right guy, and this fresh voice with slight tweaks, maybe some of the frustration has been Malone has been stubborn, and, the assistants have had ideas that they think can fix stuff, and, the players believe in, and eventually someone went to the owner and was like, hey, we think that there's better ideas farther down the bench. I'm not going to pretend like I know the ins and outs of this situation. And this is risky. The easy thing to do in a lot of ways is to just wait till the end of the season. But then what kind of opportunity have you cost yourself? And if you know you're going to fire the guy, might as well give this guy a run, I guess, the lead assistant. Although if he does well, are you 100% sure that's who you want to hire, or do you want to go through a full process? So there's positives and negatives to all of it. But at the end of the day, I do think sometimes owners get a little bit antsy, not realizing that they have a good thing. To me, if there's been this growing, to quote the Shams reporting on this, a cold war between the GM and the head coach, to then fire both of them, unless you're saying the principle of the matter is we don't do cold wars here, and the fact that you guys prove to be unprofessional enough that you can't work together, then we're firing both of you. That seems stupid to me. Just pick the person who's the problem, get rid of that guy, and move forward knowing that the other guy's hopefully good at their job. And in Mike Malone's case, we have a championship's worth of proof, not to mention a whole bunch of other winning seasons. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We'll talk to Dave Johnson about the Wizards week ahead coming up at 6 o'clock starting tonight in Indiana against the Pacers. Back-to-back, they play Philadelphia tomorrow. Coming up next, though, it's a Tuesday, so we get to ask what else happened this weekend in the world of sports beyond the top stories that we spent the last 2 days on. We'll get into all of that next after we tell you what's trending. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Dave Johnson, the legend, joins us. I feel like Dave can just go one name. He's just, ladies and gentlemen, Dave, in 10 minutes. Right now, though, Anthony, it's time for our weekend review, a.k.a. what else happened this weekend. No official title because it's still brought to you by...
Nobody, Craig.
Yep. Could be you next week out there in potential advertiser land with everyone's disposable income and solid base for predicting future business right now. Smile, thumbs up. What else happened this weekend, Anthony? The U.S. Women's National Team played this weekend. They had a 2-0 win over Brazil on Saturday afternoon. They play again tonight, and I'm predicting a goal for Washington Spirit forward Ashley Hatch. She didn't play in the first game, so I'm assuming she's going to play tonight. And it's her husband Jeff's birthday.
Okay.
So happy birthday, Jeff, Ash and Jeff are friends. So I'm giving Jeff a birthday shout out and saying that I'm predicting on the radio that Ashley will score a birthday goal for Jeff tonight for the U.S. in their Game 2 against Brazil.
Before their game, when was the last time you interviewed one of these players?
I interviewed Ashley, 2 weeks ago before, when they announced that she made this U.S. roster. And then she scored in the Spirit game. Scored. Yeah, she scored in the Spirit game. Now I'm saying she scored in the U.S. game.
Okay.
Not because it would keep up the streak, but because it's Jeff's birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a bet.
But also, I mean, if we'll take the credit if it happens. we're not gonna not take credit, obviously. This was not over the weekend, Anthony, and we talked about this a little bit. But Olivia Miles not going into the WNBA draft. That was last week. We talked about it, but she announced she's going to TCU. Which, by the way, Ben Pickman predicted on our show that might be that she might take the Haley Van Lith path. That clearly TCU proved that we can intake transfers and get them acclimated quickly. We can help you have a great season. Miles is coming off a terrific season, although she still, I think, doesn't feel up to where she wants to be coming off the injury 2 years ago. And Van Lith obviously had the really, really, really tough season at LSU, and then goes to TCU, Big 12 Player of the Year, and then she is going to be probably a first-round pick. Maybe she goes early second, but likely somewhere in the, let's say, 8 to 12 range in the draft on Monday. So Olivia Miles going to follow the same path. She is headed to TCU, where she will probably be the Big 12 Player of the Year and lead TCU deep into the tournament next year.
Yeah, and I remember Pickman discussing the style of play TCU has in terms of, it being a more pro style, a lot of pick and roll, and allowing, Olivia Miles to impact the game.
Yeah, have the ball in her hands, be a playmaker, doesn't have to share the ball like she did at Notre Dame with Hidalgo and Citron and all the other ones. Nationals had a good weekend, Anthony. They won 2 of 3 in their series against the Diamondbacks. Then they went ahead and beat the Dodgers last night. How about that? Dodgers, they're a behemoth, but the Nats got them last night.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. So Toby and Ryan asked me if I knew how many games the Nats had won in a row. And when they told me, I thought it was an April Fool's joke. But, yeah, we've won 3 in a row.
Yes. And Dylan Cruz officially off the schneid. He's a paltry 3 for 32 on the season. That is good for an 0.94 batting average, Anthony. It's not good. Our guys got...
And one of his hits yesterday apparently was charged as an error, so he didn't get a hit yesterday.
He's got to get on base. But he's got three hits. They're all singles. We've got the old three in the hits, 3 in the total bases. He does have a walk, but he scored 3 runs. So when he's getting on base, he's making his way around. Love that.
Get him on then.
Got 2 steals. Probably have more steals if he could get on base more. But young man's adjusting to the majors. He'll be just fine in the long run. But Dylan Cruz, we went into the weekend. I think he was still hitless. Comes out of it with a couple of hits, and hopefully he can continue to go. By the way, Anthony, Nathaniel Lowe, your guy, one of the brothers, or one of the Lowe brothers that is at Washington National.
He is a Washington National.
Yeah, he's
Nathaniel.
He's leading the team in hits. He's got 11 of them. so far this season. Keibert Ruiz having a nice start to the year as well. He's got 10 hits and is hitting 323 to get things going. Also, Lowe 3 homers on the year, as does C.J. Abrams. So they're at Nats Park about 50 minutes from now, first pitch tonight against the Dodgers. What else happened this weekend? There was a terrible F1 race. It was one of the most boring races that we've had on the F1 calendar in a long time. It's Suzuka. Just nobody passed anybody the entire race. It was just no real pit strategy. Risks were taken. Max Verstappen won. He and Lando Norris now just a point apart in the driver's standings. Anything else happened this weekend, Anthony, that we haven't talked about yet? I mean, obviously we talked about Ovi yesterday, so we typically we dipped some caps in here, but we're not talking about caps because we have featured the caps. This is what else happened this weekend.
Grand Slam track.
Oh yes. How about Gabby Thomas gutting out a 400, 48 something? I think, or no, maybe she was 49, but just she had to come in second to win. So basically, the Grand Slam track is a multi spot event, and each one is a Grand Slam. All the competitors are in a category. So like Gabby Thomas was in what they called long sprints. So all the same group of women or men, depending on which side you're on, obviously, 200, 400, and then there's a point system for where you finish. And so Gabby wins the 200, and then she's got to beat the 400-meter Olympic champion, Paulino, in the 400 to guarantee that she wins. And she went out and did it. She beat the 400-meter Olympic champion in the 400 in what was a fast race. The woman who actually won, I'm forgetting her name, I apologize, but she is Bahrainian. She's been on fire this season, ran the fastest time ever run in April in a 400. But Gabby gutting out that last 100 meters wins the Grand Slam and thus $100,000. Sydney McLaughlin-Lavoni won. She ran the long hurdles, 400 meters, 400 in the sprint. Kenny Bednarek won the men's short sprints, the 100 and the 200. And I think, did they have a short sprint? Oh, did Grant Holloway run? I saw that, I think, as well. Did he run? Or
I didn't see Grant run.
I don't think Grant ran. I think he won something else recently that I saw a video clip of. But, yeah, so those are some of the big names that won. 1,500, like the distance, that was a heck of a race on the men's side as well. Grant Fisher, I believe, wound up coming away from that, at least winning the 1,500, and I think he won the 3 as well. So, but it's a really cool event. I think there is L.A., Philly, and I'm missing one more that are still to come this summer. But good stuff in the track world in a non-Olympic year, especially coming off of an Olympic year. So excited for that. All right, anything else? Do we cover what else happened this weekend?
I think so.
All right, we did it, everybody, despite the help of 0 sponsors, because this segment is brought to you by
nobody, Craig.
We did it. We've officially caught you up on literally everything that happened everywhere in the world of sports. Oh, there was one more thing, Anthony. The English Premier League, Southampton has secured relegation, as in they're going down a league next year with 7 games to go, and I do believe that is the longest stretch in a season remaining where a team has secured that they stink. So, Southampton, sorry you're rubbish this year. Better luck next year. Now we've caught you up on everything else that happened this weekend, and Dave Johnson's going to join us next. Final 45 here on the Hoffman Show, and it starts, well, it's going to end because we have to give way to Dave Johnson. It starts now by welcoming Dave Johnson.
Right corner, Kismet open for three. It's there.
Time to get the radio party started.
Feeds now, the right block of Alsar. Slam.
It's time for Dave Johnson on a Wizards game day.
Blocked by Coulibaly. Left wing George. 3 on the clock for three. It's there. Feel like busting loose. Busting loose. Crossover step back three. Oh. Jordan Poole. You are cool. I feel like busting loose. Busting loose now.
On the Hoffman Show.
Dave with us from Gamebridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. Dave, happy, what's today? Today's Tuesday, right? I always had a horrible feeling that it was Monday. Happy Tuesday, sir. How are you?
It is Happy Tuesday because, again, we're going up against one of the best in the Eastern Conference. And, again, I'm doing the Hoffman interview with one of the loudest sound systems in North America as I have an aircraft carrier-sized scoreboard in front of me blasting out music. So I hope if I make any points that make sense, they're coming through. But we just had the Celtics on Sunday. Brian Alvin, of course, as part of Wizards broadcast team, thinks the Celtics are going to win it all. So we got a glimpse of a Celtics team that I think I lost count, but they made like 26 three-pointers. But we're playing it tonight, a team tonight that, look, Indiana is poised to make a run as well. And again, this is a window into where the Wizards are trying to get to in a short window of time to become a competitive team in the Eastern Conference. So it's good to go up against these teams.
It is, although I will say, unfortunately, the Wizards have experienced giving up a lot of three-pointers to Indiana as well. It was 24 against Boston. How do they get this three-point defense straightened out to let themselves be competitive and have a moment late against a good team? Unlike, unfortunately, Dave, what we know happened last time these two teams played where they gave up franchise record 162.
Well, yeah, the previous game against the Pacers went to overtime. It was a loss, so I prefer to focus on that.
Yes, two games ago. Yes.
As we talked about, it's yes, you have to get out the shooters or whatever, but, amazingly enough, giving up 24 three-pointers to the Boston Celtics is not crazy. They average 18 a game. Now, the 27 three-pointers that you have the last time the Pacers, that is crazy. The NBA record for number of threes in a game is 30. So, there's no way to excuse the need to be better. But having said that, the last time we played the Pacers, I just, hats off to them. They just kept making shots. And short of, tackling them, if they're making some of the shots they're making, not all of them were uncontested. Not all 27 were uncontested. So, that's going to be a focal point tonight. Part of that is you have to be strong in transition defense against this Pacers team. So that'll be one of the big challenges. The encouraging part for the Wizards tonight, again, all these games are about time, giving players time on the floor. And that includes now Krishan George, who returns tonight from an ankle injury. And so this now means he's going to be able to play the last 4 games of the regular season. He doesn't, go into the off season having played his last game on March 24th against Toronto when he was injured in the first quarter. So, this is important tonight because he was really building momentum to where you'd say, you know what, if he was doing that a little bit earlier in the season, he might have been part of the Rising Stars weekend. And it's not a stretch to say that. Because he just would stuff up the stat sheet defensively, offensively, the Swiss Army knife, whatever analogy you want to use. I never had a Swiss Army knife, but I know it means that you can do a lot of different things. And so Krishan George, we were so excited about, what he was doing before he got injured. So now we get, at least 4-game window before we go into the off season.
Dave Johnson with us here on the Hoffman Show. Speaking of some of those young guys, Alex Sarr, one of the things that I'm curious to ask you about, Dave, is his rebounding numbers. They haven't been great as of late, but he's averaging 5.5 as of late. You see, like, Champagne's getting, 13 the other night. Sarr's got, I think it was 4. But he's been really good against Indiana this year. He's averaged 9 per in the 3 games. on the days where he is being productive in that element, is it just a matter of opportunity and the defense needs to be better and create more misses that you can catch in the first place? Or is there certain things that you notice about his rebounding on nights where he's really locked in that area that he can hopefully get a little more consistent with as his career matures here at the end of year one?
Well, I think it's a product of the NBA where there's more long rebounds from more teams are taking three-pointers. So, that doesn't always mean your center is going to be your leading rebounder. We've had Bob Carrington, a guard, be the leading rebounder on a couple of occasions with 11 rebounds. Other Wizards were contributing to that number. But it is an NBA game where everyone has to rebound, and that includes, Alex Sarr. What's going to make him a better rebounder is time. And when I say time, I mean that translates into body development, to strength on the inside. That's what will help him because he's still, a 7-footer, but with a slight frame, if you will. And that's why we talk about him being aggressive, going to the basket, drawing contact, not going. He's got tremendous moves into the paint with the spin moves and pirouettes and whatever you want to call them. But then sometimes he do the fade. Now he's going in, initiating, making the defense rather initiate the contact and getting the N1. So I think that's more of a product of time, as I said, but time translates into you get a full off season of building up your body, and you come back next season. And I expect him to be a better and more consistent rebounder because he's still a 20-year-old. And when in his position, he's not getting rebounds, long rebounds. He's battling with men underneath, quite frankly, and that's a big disadvantage. Justin Champagnie, again, is the example of how you develop a culture that leads to winning. We talk about you got to get the right free agents, you got to draft well, which the Wizards have drafted well, but then you need players that you develop that were not on the radar, and he again is a shining example of a guy who was a two-way player. He was actually cut by the team, because of roster machinations. And now he's got an NBA contract. And he's, a unique story because he's 6'5", but getting 13 rebounds. But he's got that Kevin Love kind of nose for the ball that I don't think, you get. That's in your DNA. And that, he credits his mom for always yelling at him, get the rebounds when he was playing youth basketball. And who knew it translated to success in the NBA. Again, I think about the numbers Kevin Love used to put up. It's not because he was the tallest guy on the floor, but he was the smartest guy when it came to rebounds.
No, Love was incredible at just understanding where he needed to be at all times. And then, of course, he had the great outlet pass as well, which reminded us so much of Wes Unseld, which leads to a final thing I just want to run by you real quick, Dave. It's where we started our show today, and it is on the heels of Ovechkin breaking Gretzky's record. And the question we tried to ask off of that was, who's the most important athlete in DC history? And we kind of said between longevity, specifically within being a DC athlete. So there's some great athletes that came through here at various times of their career, but maybe only 3-4 years, 5 years in DC and 5 years somewhere else. So longevity in DC, greatness on the court, ice, field, or or I should say, and kind of what they meant to the community. If I say, most important athletes in DC sports history, and that's my given criteria, who pops to mind for you as someone who's been living here and covering sports in this town for as long as you have?
Well, I think you have to right away give it to Alex Ovechkin now because of, he accomplished a record that, I don't know if we thought it would ever be done. And I know that's not the criteria you just put, but it still blows me away that he broke the record in the same year that he broke his leg. But
yes,
I think in terms of what he has meant to – look, he made this a hockey town. He made this a hockey town of Washington, D.C. I was doing sideline for the Capitals still in 1998 when we couldn't sell out the Stanley Cup Finals with the Detroit Red Wings in town, and most of the fans were Red Wings fans. And it wasn't because of a lack of trying, but keep in mind, hockey was a relatively young sport in 1998. It was only in 1982 that Lou Strudler, who was still working with the Capitals, organized the Save the Capitals campaign. So, this franchise was almost out of here in 1982. It really was a reality. So, in terms of Alex Ovechkin, what he accomplished, bringing a Stanley Cup, surpassing a record that is an incredible record, doing it at the age he's doing it, but also he changed the sports landscape of the nation's capital. This was only a football town, and I get it. It's still very much Commanders and NFL football, like so many towns in this country. But he made hockey more than relevant, and so I think you have to give it to him. I think of another one, again, someone who spent their entire career with one team, and I would say Wes Unseld. Now that will date some listeners. You go to Capital One Arena and you'll see the bust of Wes Unseld. But keep in mind, he was Rookie of the Year and MVP in the same season. He helped change the trajectory of the then Bullets as they came to Washington and, won a title. And I remember as a young man, I was 14 years old when we won that NBA title in 1978, how that team and specifically the leadership of Wes Unseld changed this city, this area. So, I think if you start to form I do think, number one, now you have to say Alex Ovechkin. But I think if you put a Mount Rushmore together, if we still do that, you got to put Ovechkin and Wes Unseld up there.
No, I think those are two names that certainly we talked about. Darryl Green was the other one, and I think that's ultimately where I landed. But I think the case you make for Ovi of potentially literally saving the team is something that I hadn't fully considered. So I'm glad I asked, Dave, is the short version. Thanks for sharing all that. Thanks for what you're about to give us in 30 minutes from now in a pregame show. And have fun on the call tonight, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow because the Wizards play again tomorrow.
And, by the way, Darryl Green is a great shot because, again, he was part of a championship culture and it did everything in a first-class way and continues to be a part of our community. I think that, I know that may not be the criteria, but I think, you throw that in there as well. And that's the same with Wes Unseld. He continued to be a part of the community. And I'm not just talking about, he had a front office role. No. I'm talking about the stuff you don't hear about, the charitable work he did to make our community a better place. And that's important to note, I believe.
Yeah, no, to me, it's definitely part of the criteria as well. Dave, thanks so much. Appreciate it, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Always enjoy the time.
All right, it's Dave Johnson with us here on The Hoffman Show. When we get back, we'll take a look at some NBA games elsewhere on the docket tonight. Huge playoff implications. But first, the latest in the world of women's sports presented to you by Wawa with customizable, crispy, and roasted chicken sandwiches. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Real things real people said into real microphones, including, we'll let you hear a ton of the congratulations for Alex Ovechkin coming up next as we round out the show. But tonight's a big night in the NBA as the Western Conference specifically is just as, so I'm going to assume, Anthony, there's folks out there right now listening to us in their car sitting in traffic somewhere on the Beltway, on 66, on 295, wherever it is that you're sitting in traffic right now. If you're sitting in traffic, you are just as tight if you're not moving as the Western Conference. It is bumper to bumper right now in the West. Here's where we stand going into the evening. The Thunder are good. Like they're clear of everyone. They're the 1 seed. The Rockets are the 2 seed and probably are all set there. The 3 seed is the Lakers, the 4 seed the Nuggets, the 5 seed the Clippers, the 6 seed the Warriors, the 7 seed the Timberwolves, the 8 seed the Grizzlies. Between those teams is 2 games. The Lakers are at 48-30. The Grizzlies are technically in 8th, although they have the identical record to the 5th place Clippers. But those teams are all 46-32. The Nuggets, who again fired their coach today, are 47-32 in the middle of those. So the Lakers have a 1.5 lead on Denver, 2-game lead on all those other teams for the 3 seed. But, Anthony, that could all change tonight.
Yes, it could change tonight. Big game tonight.
Multiple big
Lakers,
games tonight.
Thunder.
Yeah, so that's the big one. Lakers, Thunder. If obviously the Lakers win, then they keep that lead, and this is one of the biggest tests they have remaining because there's no bigger test in basketball right now than the Thunder. Thunder are also coming off a loss over the weekend to the Lakers. Lakers thumped them. OKC's actually on a 2-game losing streak. They've only lost 14 games all year. Before they lost their last 2, had a chance to win 70 games. And now they've lost 2 in a row. So that game is tonight. Warriors Suns is tonight. Spurs Clippers tonight. Of course, Spurs are mega banged up and at this point tanking, but Clippers are in that mix. The Warriors I mentioned in that mix. The Timberwolves are in that mix. They're at Milwaukee tonight. Giannis has been on an absolute tear as of late. Let's see. We'll go last 5 games. He's got 30 in all of them. Against the Knicks last Friday, March 28th, 30 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Hawks, these are 2 losses, by the way. 31 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Then he's like, all right, fine, that's not enough to win. Watch me work. Phoenix, 37 points, 5 rebounds, 11 assists, 3 steals. Philadelphia hits a couple of threes en route to a 35-point, 17-rebound, 20-assist game. 35, 17, 20. And then in an overtime win against Miami on Saturday, 36 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. So he's got back-to-back 35-plus point triple-doubles.
Ridiculous, man. Ridiculous.
And they're home dogs to the Timberwolves tonight.
Wow.
Who need to win to keep pace. Eastern Conference, also a great one tonight. The early game on TNT is New York and Boston. Celtics on the road at the Knicks. You've also got Pelicans, and that's tonight, for whatever that's worth. Hawks, Magic, Bulls, Cavs. Cavs having a hell of a season. They got 62 wins. Grizzlies, Hornets, and then Wizards, Pacers rounds out the NBA schedule tonight. So it's gonna be an interesting one. A couple of interesting games, and we'll see where it is tomorrow. But those teams that are all 3 through 8, Anthony, could wind up super duper jumbled. And again, to remind folks, 1 through 6 is the playoffs. 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are your play-in seeds. So this is probably going to go down to the last day of the regular season to find out who is waiting and safely in the playoffs versus who is in the play-in games. And, of course, I think everyone wants to avoid being in the 1-4 side of the bracket because then you avoid OKC as long as possible.
Yeah, I'm so excited. But the thing is, Craig, this sort of kind of reminds me, even when I was in high school, how tight the West was. You had all these teams win 50 games, and the race was always just so tight. So this year is good to just see, the West getting back to like what it was. And then also on the eastern side of the bracket, or I guess Eastern Conference, the Knicks, can they get a big win against one of these top dogs in the East? They always lose to the Celtics. They always lose to the Cavs, and there's a third team they always lose to. I can't think of right now. But
Bucks, Pacers, and those are and the Knicks are third in the standings right now. They're not going to catch Boston. They're 8 games back. But the Pacers and the Bucks are the 2 teams right behind them.
yeah, but they need a big win. So if they can go out there, beat the Celtics tonight, maybe they'll have some confidence going into the playoffs. But if not, I'm not buying the Knicks, man. It's a two team race. The Cavs, the Celtics, and that's it.
Yeah, we'll obviously see if the Knicks can get healthy as well. Probably looking at the return of Jalen Brunson tonight. He's listed as probable for tonight's game. Miles McBride also listed as probable tonight for the Knicks. So they've obviously been without, or were without Brunson, I should say, for quite a while. I think it was like 13 games he wound up missing. Maybe it was 14. So it's time of year that you got to get healthy, and the Knicks, luckily for them, are doing that. We'll see if it's enough to beat the Celtics tonight. We'll talk about how it went down more tomorrow when we get back. Real things real people said in real microphones, or perhaps telephones, mobile phones, camera phones, as they congratulated Alex Ovechkin. You'll hear from some of the best in sports and what they had to say to Ovi next to wrap up this year edition of The Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Miss any part of the show? Make sure that you hit the podcasts. Just search the Hoffman Show wherever it is you get your pods. You can also watch the whole show on demand on YouTube at the Team 980. And of course, we cut it up into pieces as well, the best of, and we put that on YouTube at Craig Hoffman as well. Anthony, on the show tomorrow, it's a Wednesday. Probably looking at some mock drafts tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
I think it's that time of the week. I never read the comments on Thursday. What else we got tomorrow?
It's a great question, Craig.
I was afraid you were going to say that.
Yeah, I mean it's not a ton happening, so I'll check the wires and get back to you.
Check the wire. Wow. That's the oldest thing I've ever heard you say.
Yeah.
I'll check the wire.
I used to get told to check the AP wires all the time.
No, it's not a bad place to go. It's not even like we're ignoring things. Like, hey, do more caps. They don't play till Thursday. I guess we could check in on the Nationals.
True. Win 4 in a row?
Maybe. We'll see what they do tonight. Trying to eke their way back towards 500, 4-6 on the year. Winners of 3 in a row, 2 against the Diamondbacks, 1 against the Dodgers, dominating the NL West. We'll see. So I put it this way. You got requests for the show? You got some wacky idea that you want to hear your boys talk about? Shoot us a note. We're open to ideas. We have no idea what we're doing tomorrow. Anything else later in the week that we need to start letting folks know about? No, it's really that barren of a schedule, huh, Anthony?
Yeah, pretty
Man,
much.
this even making this part of the show.
It's the Masters this week.
Cool.
I'm just letting you know.
Look, I know people are into golf on some level. It's not. On Sunday, if there's nothing else going on, will I pop on the Masters? Maybe. It's one of the few tournaments that I'd even consider. It's just not my cup of tea. But you know what? I say that, and then sometimes it is fun to watch. Maybe I'm overly hating. I'm going to check myself on that.
You'll be surprised when you get a mention or somebody hits your DMs and wants Masters talk.
What if we just read a bunch of stuff and got super informed as quickly as we could and just did a whole Masters bit? Just like had odds, had history, had notes. Like I prepped like I was calling the thing.
How many hours do you think that would take?
More than I want to spend.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. But we could. Currently it's the best idea on the board.
I think it will require me to sleep standing up because that's the lack of knowledge I have about the Masters in general.
Scotty Scheffler, real good. He's probably the favorite. He's the best player in the world.
What's DeChambeau?
Bryson DeChambeau, yeah.
Yep, I know him.
Yeah.
Phil Mickelson.
Yeah, is Phil still?
I don't know if he still golfs.
But I don't know where he's at right now.
Either.
I do know about Phil Mickelson.
You know what we should do?
What?
Should we bring someone over to play a game about who's participating in the Masters?
That would be kind of a funny bit. Is that guy a Masters golfer? From the creators of Is That Guy a Washington National? Now we're on to something, Anthony.
We might be.
Who should we have host it? Sheehan would be good. Who else are big golf guys? I know the Junks are big golf guys. Sheehan feels like the right one.
Okay.
I don't know if Kevin will do it.
I don't think so either.
He's certainly not going to come in to do it. We can't get him to come in and do his show.
Yeah.
It's time for Real Things.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Set into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, we got a whole bunch of things in the Real Things folder because there was a whole lot of folks that congratulated Alex Ovechkin on his goal, including the one and only Jaden Daniels.
What up, Alex? Jaden Daniels here, man. Congratulations to you on becoming the NHL all-time leading scorer in goals. Man, it's just a testament to what you do, the work that you put in, the consistency that you had year in and year out, man. Keep putting on. You're a DC legend, man. Hopefully one day I could be up there with you, but, man, you're an inspiration to all.
That's the goal. One day, Jaden be on the Mount Rushmore. Yeah, man. I do love that Jaden is always prepared. Because it's not not the NHL's all-time leading scorer, is the NHL's all-time leading goal scorer, which is a different thing in hockey language, and Jaden Daniels was prepared because Jaden Daniels is always prepared.
Of course, man. I wouldn't expect anything less.
No, of course not. You know who else is always prepared?
Who?
Joe Beninati and Craig Laughlin. Locker and Joe B have called literally every goal that Alex Ovechkin, I mean, not every goal because they've, had some national TV games, and obviously Locker missed a little time this year, but they've been there for the entirety of it, from his first goal to his record breaker on Sunday, which was a fun little retrospective that Monumental Sports put together.
Reels it in. Halpern shaded there by Rick Nash. Dinas Zubris spins. Ovechkin fires. He scores! Alexander Ovechkin, welcome on board.
Young Joe B right there.
Well, that is called pulling the trigger, and this youngster hammers it home. What a first goal for Alexander Ovechkin.
Neutralized 13 of the last 14 shorthanded situations against them. Strome crisscrossing with Chikrin through center. Send in Wilson on the flank. Cross ice, Ovechkin fires. Score! The chasing days are done! Alex Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer in the history of the NHL!
It's crazy how Locker's voice hasn't changed one bit, and Joe's somehow just gotten deeper and richer. That or the audio quality is just a lot better.
Yeah, I don't know, but both were tremendous calls.
Yes,
love them both.
Yes, it's like Joe B. You can tell like he's younger. He's still great, and the fact that like I've been lucky enough to interview a bunch of play-by-play people over the years of doing this, and like I remember asking Mike Breen about this once of like, hey man, like you're the voice of LeBron's career. Like all of his signature moments, or almost all of his signature moments, like your voice is on them. And he's like, yeah, it's crazy. And for Joe and Locker and everyone who's been a part of that Capitals broadcast team, there's probably camera guys that have captured many of those moments. They're like, that's my image or my images. Like, it's pretty cool that they've had so much continuity over there, and especially the voice and the soundtrack of Ovi's career. Last but not least in the Real Things folder for us today, Sidney McLaughlin-Lavoni ran the 400 open, a.k.a. without hurdles, and the 400 hurdles at Grand Slam track this weekend, and then joined the desk to settle an age-old debate. Which one's harder?
I have a question for you, Sid, that I feel like you're actually the only person that can really answer this. We're always debating if the 400 is harder than the 400 hurdles. You do both all the time.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think so, to be honest with you. I think the hurdles give you something to measure off of. You know what I mean? You know how many strides you need. The 400, you don't know where you are until you're there. You know what I mean?
That's what I was telling John. I'm happy you validated that, because
Yes.
the 400 is really hard to conquer. But I feel like you're just about there, the American record. I feel like this is your year.
I'm working on it.
I have a question for you, Sid, that I feel like you're actually the only.
Andy, you put it in there double.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's okay. It's 400. It was the second one going to have hurdles in it?
I think so.
Oh, okay. I kind of want to hit play to find out. But did you run track in high school?
Yeah, so I ran.
Did you run hurdles?
I didn't run hurdles.
Okay. What'd you run?
Craig, first of all, when I was in high school, I didn't grow until my junior year. So my freshman and sophomore year, I was 4'11" as a freshman, 5'2" as a sophomore. Hold up, Craig, don't laugh too hard.
I'm just chuckling. I'm not guffawing. I'm chuckling.
Junior year, I want to say I was probably like 5'3", 5'4". At the end of junior year, it's finally when I was 5'5", 5'6". So it took me a little while. So I was on the shorter side of things when it came to track. So
not a hurdler.
No,
the 110 hurdles were taller than you were.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Probably weighed more than me too.
Yeah. So what'd you run?
I ran the 1. I ran the 2. I ran the mile. I ran the 800. Yeah, and I also ran the 400. I will never, ever run the 400.
The 400 is notoriously the worst thing in track.
Dude.
Because it is, like the 800, you hold back a little bit, and you're gassed by the end. You're running pretty much all out for a half mile. But there's just that little bit of reserve. The 400, and I didn't run track, but like I've done enough track workouts that I understand the concept. You just run your brains out as fast as you can for a quarter mile. And there is no pacing. There is no, like, in the 400 hurdles, there's a little bit of pacing. And as Sid says, you have the like the hurdle is that you're basically counting your steps, and so there's something mentally to distract you. 400 open? No. It's just try not to puke, at least until you're across the finish line. That's our show. I'm sure Dave loves that as a lead-in. Wizards basketball next.